Welcome. It's December. Merry Christmas. It's my favorite month of the year. And if it's yours too, hey, we have to enjoy this month because it only comes once every year. And if you're like me and you have a tendency of just enjoying the month before the serious stuff comes in, that is in January, when people set goals, when now we start asking ourselves, what do I want to do for the new year? Before then, let's just reflect on December. From December on to January, the whole of 2023, how has it been for you? Because for me, it has been an year of reflection. And if this is not your first time, then you definitely know what I'm talking about because I am a relationship coach, and part of why I am who I am today is because of my experience. So today I just want to do something that I've not done, but it's got me sitting down to just think about my years, the past year, how it has been. And with it, I have come up with some lessons that I know that even they will definitely apply to you, whether you're in your 30s like me, 40s, 50s, whichever age bracket you're in. I know you're going to enjoy this. So karibu sana. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you're new here. And if you're a returning subscriber, karibu sana. Let's get into it. If you see me looking down at my phone, just know that I have some little notes on my phone, which I'm referring to. So don't wonder what is she looking at down there. Yeah, it's just my phone. And point number one, which has been so eye-opening, it's one that I wish I had learned maybe when I was still younger, but it's still okay. There is never a right time or wrong time in this life. All we have to do is to run and to learn and relearn. The first point that I've actually learned is that we teach people how they treat us. And why do I say this? I say this especially for my lesson, the ones that I've picked in my relationship, that you need to know your negotiables. And this is not just about relationships or just intimate relationships. This is even including platonic relationships. You teach your friends how they treat you. Somebody actually told me that unless you learn how to say no, people will keep taking. And they will take. And the day that you cannot give, they'll be like, why are you not giving anymore? We're used to you giving us, always giving and giving. So learn your non-negotiables. And with non-negotiable comes boundaries. And here's something that I actually came to learn during my relationship. I think all the don'ts were broken. Like I had been through the physical abuse, emotional abuse. I had gone through affairs, cheating, and all those things. Like basically everything that could go wrong was already going wrong. And if you're seated there and you're in such a situation, what I normally would advise you is just ask yourself, what can I not take and what can I take? Because that will determine the way and what people will put you through, just like children. I'm a mom, and you all know that. And if you're a parent as well, you will know that children also tend to do the same thing. They tend to push your boundaries. You'll say no today, tomorrow they will do it again just to see whether you're going to cave into it or not. So it's a boundaries thing. And this is something that I wish nearly all of us could have learned. But sadly, it's not something that you learn in the school syllabus. These are things that you're taught by the school of life. These are things that you come to learn later on, especially when things happen to you and you're asking yourself, what's going on? This is one of the major things that I've had to learn in my 30 plus years from behind their boundaries. Know your negotiables. Know what you can keep up with. Know your don'ts, know your don't and your do's. And you do not owe anyone an apology for being you. The way you are, who you are, just do you. If for you you're not into alcohol, but your friends are all into alcohol, it's okay to say no. It's okay for you to hang around them and still not be able to drink. So don't forget, my lesson number one was learn your do's and your don'ts, and just learn your negotiables because those are your boundaries. That's my lesson number one. On to lesson number two. Lesson number two that I wished I had learned, and this is also an advice that I give people right now, especially before you get into a relationship. Learn the difference between a healthy and an unhealthy relationship. This is, it's just the biggest lesson that you can learn, especially in your adulthood. Sadly, we learn how relationships should look like through maybe our parents because they're first mirror, they are our first teachers. Remember, you've never been in a relationship before, you've never been married before. Everyone has got an idea of what a marriage or a relationship should look like. Probably, if you're like me, your parents' relationship was not as healthy, and you end up, and I say this a lot because it's very true. And I use the example of myself. We tend to navigate towards people who replay our childhood traumas. And your parents, mostly, those are like, if you're a daughter like me, your dad tends to be your first boyfriend. So what happens? Most of the time, you marry a person who is exactly like your father. So imagine if your father was not a healthy man. Imagine if the idea that we have is not an idea of a healthy relationship, then we end up getting into a cycle, a vicious cycle of toxic relationships, abusive marriages, and all the other crazies. And then we bring our kids into it and it becomes a cycle and a cycle and a cycle. And don't even ask why. Nowadays, we have such a huge number of single moms. It's because right now is when we are coming to know most of the moms, actually, women, actually now empowered. We are saying that the women, the girl child, is being empowered more than the boy child. So what does that mean? The men still have the stereotypic minds of the way their dads used to be, who most of them were not very healthy men. And these women are now empowered. And let me tell you, there is nothing as huge as an empowered person or an empowered woman. I will talk in the sense of myself. When I know what is good for me and what is not good for me, I will not stick around and wait for somebody to abuse me again. Most of the times why people are getting abused and getting into relationships that do not serve them, mostly it's because they don't have the information, the knowledge. They don't even have a know-how of what should a healthy relationship even look like. So for me, that is a lesson that I've learned a bit late, but I'm really grateful that I've learned and I can be able to teach it to other women and even men because I know I have followers who are men, learning the difference between what a healthy relationship is like and an unhealthy relationship. That's going to be a game changer for you in a relationship. Um, the other thing before I proceed to the next lesson is that just knowing there is a difference between a situationship, and this is something that I need to sit down and talk about and have a discussion about. There's a difference between a situationship and a relationship. And that comes on to my point number 3. My lesson number 3 is very connected to number 2, is that you need to learn that everything, this is something that I've come to learn, everything that you put your energy into, something that you invest in, and this I'm talking on the perspective of a relationship. The more you invest in something, the greater efforts you give into it, the greater the results, the harder it's going to be for you to just play around with it. And this I'm talking in terms of a relationship, I talk in terms of a job, anything that you've invested in, even coaching. I will tell you an example that I have had some of the best coaches that I could be able to afford, and they did not come in cheap. And what did that mean? It meant that I had to step up and actually be committed to the process. I became committed to the process of learning. I became committed to the process of wanting to change my life, wanting to be better. Just imagine if I was getting free advice, and this is what most of it is in the YouTube space. You'll get a solution about anything and everything out there. But just being committed to one person and one teacher, being committed to that relationship. And what does commitment look like in a relationship? Doing things the right way. And this is why I was saying it's a bit, I touched on it on the lesson number 2, knowing the difference between a situationship and a relationship. Knowing that there are ways of doing things right, like having a relationship where it is recognizable. And I'm not just talking about a church wedding. There are civil weddings, there are traditional weddings. It's known between God and man. That is the whole thing about a commitment. You can say, I know there are people like, I've seen so many comments on TikTok about this. There will be people who will say you can still be committed to someone because you're staying with them in the same house. But my friend, another part, a triangle, there's a triangle about relationships. And it says one of it is the commitment part. And in commitment, there is always an exchange of something. I normally give an example of, if I give you my car and I'm with my logbook, how is that your car? It means that any particular time I can report it missing. And even simply because you're driving it doesn't mean that it is yours. So the amount of work that you put in something will actually make it even very hard for you to give it up. Why was it so easy for me to just walk out? Because if I had to sit down, maybe let's say it was a proper marriage with a certificate, with a legal process that I had to go through. During the whole thing, sometimes you sit back and you're like, okay, even they ask you, does it mean that you've come to a point where you cannot be able to sit down and work on this? And you say you can't. But for me, I'm just walking out. Why? I was not married. I say this and I say this to you as a woman who is seated there and you're staying with a man, you're cohabiting, you're not in a marriage. Tomorrow, somebody else could just walk in and stay with them. And this is my opinion. Maybe you can have a different one, but let's just state the obvious. You're not married. I was not married, sad as it is. And Merry Christmas, by the way, still a good season. So, anyway, I'm going to move on to points, which is also lesson number 4, something that I learned and I wish I had known earlier. And on my 4th one is that the people who trigger you actually have power over you. Let me just say that again in case you did not get it, because it took me time to also understand this. The person who triggers you the most is the one who has your power. And what do I mean by this? Somebody who triggers you, somebody who makes you react in a certain way, that means that that person is making you behave. Can you imagine, like the way you normally tell a dog sit and they sit? And I had to learn this through what? And I tell this to other women who are seated there just waiting maybe for their partners to change, thinking that, oh, I'm going to be happier when my husband decides to love me more. I'm going to look prettier when so and so decides to take me out. It's in your hands. And this means that you need to take responsibility. And taking back your power means taking responsibility for both the good and the bad. It means owning up to the part that you played and normally say, as much as I say I was in a toxic relationship, I played my part in it. It takes 2 people to make a marriage or relationship work, and it also takes 2 people to make it break. So I had my fair share of it. And it was in the moment that I realized this that I got my power back. It is in the moment when you realize that, hey, this person is gaslighting you. They're telling you things. They want a reaction out of you. Well, you can choose to give it to them or decide to just stay grounded and just don't give them a reaction. That is taking your power back. That is the whole essence of you being in your full power. So think about it. The person triggering you can be your spouse, they can be your partner, maybe even at work, they can be your parents, because they do trigger us. And and when I talk about taking responsibility over your life, I also mean taking responsibility in terms of even our own healing journey. We have been wounded. Most of us are walking around with wounds from childhood. Childhood wounds, those are very common because they lay the basis of who we become later, how we show up even in our relationships. Taking responsibility means not even blaming that woman who you call your mom, not blaming that man who you call your dad, because they did wound us. Remember what you have said in the very first lesson? Lesson number 2, is that what we do know, most of what we know, we got it from somewhere. If you got it from your parents, if maybe you saw your mom get battered, but she stayed, and you're thinking like me, that's how I used to feel. And I remember when I went to therapy the very first time, I used to say, well, I wish if my mom had walked out earlier, maybe I wouldn't have stayed in this. But was it really her choice to stay there? That was her choice, not mine. What did I choose? I chose different. What happens if my kids choose differently? It's their decision. So it's you taking responsibility. That's why you get your power back. And let me tell you, there's no good place, better place to be at than when you have your power, than when nobody can be able to get a reaction out of you. And in this is why we become, I am a self-proclaimed ex-drama queen. I will say that for a fact because I know I have done a couple of things. When we talk about people getting being looked at as crazy, as a source of, and this is maybe a discussion that I should have, reactive abuse. This means that if you've ever seen a woman somewhere who goes and finds the man cheating and you touch the car, that used to be me. When you find a man is doing something wrong, then you go tear his clothes in pieces because you had bought them, or scratch the car or key the car the way you go around with it, or burn something. Or I had a very crazy story some time back. I had this lady say that she found out her man was cheating on her, and when she found that out and she knew that the parents were coming over, she went over to his house because she had an extra key, took all the flour, maize flour, all the chapati flour, just spilled it everywhere all over the house, stole one shoe like from each foot. You can imagine going through all this trouble because someone did something to you. That means they're very powerful. And when I learned about this, I was like, oh my, what have I been doing? You're almost being sent to Madare. That's the biggest mental institution here in Kenya. You're almost being sent there because of the things that you do. And it's not because of you, because someone is making you do them. No. Please, as we walk into the new year, think about this because it might actually be your saving grace. It might be the one lesson that you need. So even if you don't remember any other lesson, just remember this fourth lesson. The person who triggers you the most has the power over you. On to point number 5. This is something that I'm still learning even now because sometimes it stops me, but it is a very important lesson to learn, and that is nobody cares. And even if they do, it's not as big as you think. We have this tendency to always think, oh, what will people say? How will they feel if I make this decision? And I hear it a lot. Most of the women tell me they're in toxic relationships, just like I was, because of they're afraid of what people might say. They're afraid of what their friends might say. They're afraid of what their parents might say. And they do not want that. They're afraid of the society as a whole. Well, let me ask you something. When you go back to that partner who batters you every night, when your children are crying every night, when you're crying in bed alone every night, who is there to watch you? And somebody even brought this to light for me. It was a coach. He was one of my coaches. And he asked us at a certain point, if no one was watching, if no one cared, who would you be today? What would you do today? And that honestly has been my motto. At least for 2023, it has been. If no one is looking, no one is watching you right now, what you're doing, if no one would care about what you are doing, what would you be able to do as a person, or what would you want to do? And let me tell you, just close your eyes right now. Think if everyone had a blindfold and they could not hear, what would you be doing? This is why the person that we are behind closed doors, the person that we are when it's just you in your room, maybe you dance around naked like I like doing. Maybe you like to just eat. Maybe you like to bask with your clothes off. You're just you and you're free. But when you come out, you're fully dressed, fully clothed. Do you even look? How do I look? You look at yourself in the mirror. And even if you step out of that house, and when you are looking at yourself, you are looking very good in the mirror. But then you take 2 steps out and somebody tells you, was that the best that you would have pulled from your closet? Then you start feeling like, why? What's wrong? And you become so self-conscious the whole day. Well, imagine if you just walked out feeling like the goddess you are or the king you are. If you just walked around doing the things that you love doing. If you were just free to laugh loudly, eat with your hands, and nobody cared. I normally hear this from people who have who are telling their story from the deathbed. And they normally say that the last things that happen to a person's mind before they pass on to the, I don't know where, is your life flashes before your eyes. You look at the things that, and the biggest regrets are the things that you didn't do, but you wanted to do. So, how about for 2024, you decide, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to start that job that I have always wanted to do, that side hustle, though I don't call any job a side hustle. How about you decide, I'm going to walk out and actually look for love because it exists? How about if you decide, I'm going to just, and this is bringing me now to the next lesson because it has a bit of lessons that actually merge somewhere, which is the next lesson number, I think lesson number 6, which is, but okay, before I even get on to that lesson, just think about it. Nobody really cares. Honestly, even if they talk about you today, I used to say to myself, at this point where I am right now, and especially knowing what is healthy and what is unhealthy, even if I ever end up with an 80-year-old man marrying him, nobody should come call me a gold digger. Nobody should even ask me any questions. Why? Because I have dated somebody younger and I know I was not happy. So just do you. Whatever you feel is good for you, do it. Today, people will discuss you. Tomorrow, they'll be talking about something else. And remember, everyone has got an issue. And most of the people who will be pointing fingers at you are people who are always behind you. Not, there won't be very many people who come to your face and ask you, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Those are the genuine friends, and it's okay. And remember, you don't even owe everyone an apology or an explanation over how you live your life. So before I move on to the next point, remember, no one cares. And even if they do, it's a very small percentage. So live your life. On to the next point, which I said it had something to do with this one, which is point number 6. It is in the unknown, that's why you grow. What does that mean? When I tell you wake up, do that thing that you have been wanting to do, when I say quit that job because it's toxic and it's been draining you, but then you're getting a monthly paycheck and you feel like that's your comfort zone, it is in the unknown where you grow. And still to my story, I was in this relationship. There's so many things that I had not done. Everything that I have done, everything that I have ever wanted to do, I did it in the course of this time when I took my leap of faith. A leap of faith can be scary. That's why it's a leap of faith. It's like you're jumping into the dark unknown that you don't know. And the human brain, it always wants to have some sort of control. So you jumping into the unknown, that is unknown territories to you. That is something that your brain cannot comprehend, it cannot control. You don't know how the outcomes will be. Yes, there's the fear of you might end up with somebody worse than you, than your ex. Yes, there is a possibility that you might go back, like you might have to give up the good life that you're living right now because you're still in the umbrella of this person that you're living with. Yes, there is even the possibility that if you leave your job, it might get worse. But remember, there are no. We normally say there are no losses, just lessons. Why? Right now, I can be able to tell, oh, I left this marriage. These were the things that I went through. I have those lessons. These are some of the lessons that I'm giving right now. If you leave that job and start a new job, you can be able to say, oh, I have the experience of having started this job. I know what it takes to make it fail, what it makes to even keep it up. I know the things that I should have done to make it even work some more. Maybe I needed more capital, maybe I needed more partners, maybe I needed something like a good location. You have an idea, you have a lesson. At least I will say at the end of it all, I got somebody who loved me for me, something that I would never have been able to get. You know what happens when you normally have somebody, and this is something that we even talk about in my classes. When you have somebody in your life and they're not serving you, you have closed the door of somebody else walking into it. Nobody should ever lie to you that you can be with someone, you're with them here as you wait to have somebody better. It doesn't work like that. You can only have one person at a time. When you're here wasting your time and your life on this one person. Life is moving on for everyone else. Your soulmate is still there, just looking for you, and maybe he might end up finding somebody else. So before you decide this coming year that you're going to repeat the same pattern that you've been at, before you decide that you're still going to go back to that job where you feel you're very unhappy, very sad, before you keep those friends around you that you know are always in a competition with you and that they're not serving you, think about the possibility of what if you will let go of that and actually thrive. It is in their known that you grow. Everyone, even the billionaires, everyone had to let go of their comfort zone to be able to fly, to get into that other. Just think about even the eagle. When you're there, they're perched on some rock somewhere. They have to let go to be able to observe and to see this beautiful scenery. So for you to be able to actually get that thing that you've been wanting, you have to fight. You have to fight, and you have to face this fear of the unknown. And if you do, please don't forget to just comment there and tell me, hey, Jacinta, I did this and this is the way it worked out. Whether positive, whether negative, you have said there's no failure, no losses, just lessons. On to my very last seventh lesson. And when I say seven, I say seven with a smile because seven is my lucky number. If you're seven like me, I was born on 7th, by the way. So, in case you do decide to send gifts, it's 7th. So, anyway, on to my seventh point. Something that I wish I had been told earlier is that your network equals to your net worth. And what do I mean by that? It's a whole story. I wish I've been drinking a lot of water. I wish somebody would have told me that if you hang around losers, you become a loser. And I don't say that in a bad way. If you hang around negative people, you also become very negative. If you hang around witches, because you're in Africa, you become a witch too. And there is no debate about this. If you follow me, and if you have not followed me, please do that on my social medias: Facebook, Jacinta Wangeshi; IG, Jacinta Wangeshi; TikTok, Jacinta Wangeshi; YouTube, subscribe, Jacinta Wangeshi. I am high on networking events. And on that note, I think if I have another one coming up, because I know I have another one not very far in future, I'm definitely inviting you. You need to network, and not just network. It's called networking app. And networking app is just be the one person that doesn't know as much. And this is something that I've come to learn from people who are way above me. They have been in situations where most of the people are actually earning more, or they know more, or they're doing more than they are. That is how we learn. When you do network, when you hang around people who don't actually aspire to be more, or don't have bigger dreams, then you start dwindling down. Then you are like, and I have seen this. I have seen this even in people who had very high dreams, had very big dreams, but then they were put in a basket, or let me just call it a basket, or in a space where their friends are people who are just doing the bare minimum, and they felt like, oh, I think I'm in a good space. And just like that, all the dreams shattered. See, that ceiling that people put above themselves is determined by who you hang around. I wish I had learned that, because this has become huge for me. Most of the things that I know now, most of the things that I value now are simply because I hanged around, or I talked to, or I got to know people who were always above me, something that I never took into importance before. So if you're sitting there, whether you're in your 20s, this applies to everyone, whether you're in your 20s, in your 30s, even if you're in high school, or even in your 40s, in your 30s, the next thing to leveling up your life is by networking up. And I have no apologies when I'm saying this. Networking up, or who you hang around, that is going to become a game changer in your life. It's going to determine whether you break that glass ceiling, go above it, or actually just dwindle down and become a nobody. And in this concept, I also talk about it in terms of a relationship. Like I had people, women who would tell me, oh, it's very okay. Actually, I had a friend who told me, oh, when I told her, I think this relationship is becoming too abusive, and I have this fear that I might end up being killed one of these days. She was like, Jacinta, people get pushed around a lot. I also get done. I also get pushed around. This is actually what she said. She called it pushing around. I also get pushed around, and there's nothing you cannot just walk out of your marriage because of that. Remember, our grandmothers have been living through this. Remember, our moms have been through it. But my friend, you're not your grandmother, you're not your mom, you are you. And if it has been a cycle, a generational cycle, that you owe it unto your children and your next generation to be the change. There's this meme which I normally see it trending, that says your grandfather was playing maybe a certain games when somebody else's grandfather, like maybe the influential families, were getting the wealth, accumulating the wealth and the money. Please don't be the reason that your grandkids come up with such a meme. You owe it onto your next generations to become better, do better, and leave a legacy that they will remember you for. Can you imagine? So those were the 7 lessons that I've actually learned about 2023. Some I learned maybe earlier, but I really wish that I had been told about this earlier, or I wish that I had known about all this way, way back. And I'm hoping that they influence you positively. I'm hoping that they inspire you to become better. I'm hoping that they even make you want to reach out and just say a thumbs up by liking this video. They also maybe might make you want to say a Merry Christmas on the comments or something. Might make you want to DM me, tell me, Jacinta, you're doing a good job. I'd appreciate that. Just feel free to connect with me, and in the Christmas spirit, have a Merry Christmas and stay positive. Look forward to 2024. Do your life, and if you need any help, I mean any help when it comes to toxic relationships, breaking the patterns of dating toxic people, because that is a pattern, just DM me, reach out to me, DM me. um, you can reach out to me through my social medias, especially on Facebook or on IG or on TikTok. All the handles, I'm Jacinta Wangeshi. Reach out to me. Tell me that you need my help, because that is what I do. I'm helping women leave toxic relationships, and I'm helping them to break the patterns of toxicity, dating one toxic person after the other, to finally becoming very happy with themselves, because this is something that we are never told. You need to love yourself first. It's cliche. They say that a lot. Love yourself first, and then somebody else will love you. So self-love. Self-love is just everything that you need to know about walking out of a toxic relationship. So these are some of the things. Boundaries, your attachment styles. How do you love someone? Do you hold on to them? Do you cling on to them for dear life? Or are you this person who gets loved and then you're like, hey, I can't handle that? Or are you the confused, who we call, and this is a topic that we'll discuss also, called disorganized attachments? These are some of the things that you look at. What is a healthy relationship? What is an unhealthy relationship? Basic number one of any relationship. Basic number one. You really need to know this. Some of the things that I teach in my class. How do healthy men look like? Something that you might never have known. I have the insight, I have the info about that too. So if you feel like you can resonate with this, or you feel like I'm talking to you, something that you need to learn about in the coming 2024, DM me, reach out to me, comment, tell me whatever. If And remember to share this video with somebody who might need to hear this. Remember that information is power. So on to the next episode. Bye bye.